one of the experts in our book said that I was complicit in my own oppression. She's not wrong. Like when COVID hit and Doug was earning 3 times my salary, even though I was a corporate lawyer, doing my job every day, picking things up and putting them down, doing whatever I have to do. Like it was very clear when we had 2 little kids at home who was going to be making the sacrifices. It was me. But those were messages that were embedded in me, not necessarily from him, but from the workplace, from society, from social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it, just real quick, I think it underscores a big theme in this book, which is that fairness is not equal. Because there's no way to equalize someone who's earning versus someone whose time is just as important providing care. And when you see people strive for 50-50, whether they're doing the same thing, both working or not working, that doesn't scale. That's not practical. It doesn't work that way. It's very subjective. What is fair to us is not fair to another couple, and vice versa.
Welcome to Trends with Benefits, Heather. And we were just talking with Doug that, it was probably a little over 5 years ago or about 5 years ago that he was last on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Two-timers club for me.
Yeah. You hid that from her? I don't know.
Yeah.
The real conversations you should be having. Right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
What podcast have you been on?
Yes. Without me.
So yeah, again, welcome to Trends with Benefits. And for those listening in, maybe not watching the YouTube, but we're speaking with Doug and Heather Boneparth. Doug is president of Bonafide Wealth. Heather is director of business and legal affairs at Bonafide as well.
Yeah, don't forget the legal side.
Yeah,
Don't
exactly. Oh, no. Got to cross my I's and or dot my I's and cross my T's. But yeah, this is awesome. It was fortunate that I ran into Doug at Future Proof and he remembered me. And so I'm like, hey, come back on the show.
Amazing.
Good bumping into you for sure.
Yeah. I'm really excited to talk about your book. And how's it going? I mean, you guys are out there. It seems like you're doing a book tour. And how's it been going? How's it been received?
Good.
It's good.
Yeah, I don't have any numbers to share with anyone, which is interesting. But as far as just amount of activity and how busy we've been talking about the book on podcasts and TV and articles, I mean, we couldn't ask for more.
I knew we would get positive feedback from readers and couples because I knew what we were putting out in the world. But the thing that I am really excited about is the feedback from advisors, and that has been incredibly positive because, a lot of the reason that we wrote this book was so twofold in the sense that real meaningful change happens at home. We look for equity out in the world begins at home, but it also, you have to turn to your institutions and you have to turn to the professionals to also move this work forward. So the fact that it's being well received by advisors feels really good.
Yeah, that's great. I liked it. And by the way, I don't think we mentioned it yet, but the book is Money Together. A great book. It's great in the sense it's not just math. It feels like a therapy session, actually. A lot of psychology.
Yeah. The last thing we really wanted was, here are 10 steps to radically change your, money life with your partner.
Not like there's anything wrong with that, but that's been done before.
Sure.
Yeah. You can pick up 10 books on budgeting and spending any day of the week. And we wanted to talk about the stuff that felt so consequential to couples and what's really going on behind closed doors. And sometimes what can't even be said because no one had the words to say it. So that was really important to us to try and approach this from a vantage point that nobody really ever has.
Yeah.
Also, the fact that stories are what people are interested in. Stories are what you share with your friends and your family. And Heather had a very interesting story around her own experience with money to serve as this common thread for the dozens and dozens of real couples that, kind of told us everything, we could hope they could share with us about, money. And we were able to weave that together in 5 amazing sections.
That's great. And it took you, 2 or 3 years to write?
Yeah, at least 2. I think a little more than 2 years.
Around 2 years. No, it was around 2 years from when we began.
Honey, it feels like 20. Okay?
It's been 45 years.
4 years.
This book we thought about this book before we were born.
Yeah. Definitely feels longer than that, but 2 years is.
No, it's been about 2 years.
That's amazing. I don't know how you guys do it. I mean, this is your second book together, right? Millennial Money Fix before you did this one. You guys work together. You have a family together. How do you do it? How do you do this whole writing process? Do business? How do you keep yourself organized? Or is it just kind of an innate energy that you just want to stay busy?
I think that we both have our strengths and they're not the same strengths.
Yeah.
Which I think works really, really well because we do a great job looking around corners for each other and picking up where the other person might have more trouble. And that's both with the firm as well as it's with creative pursuits like a book and with our life and even our social life. Like it's not that we do everything together. Like we're so enmeshed that we're truly like one person. I think anyone who gets to know us well knows that we are
very different people on your hands.
Yeah.
Getting two individuals when you hang out with.
It's like the Neapolitan ice cream, except there's only two flavors.
Opposites attract. That's good.
Very much an opposites attract type stuff here. I mean, there's a lot of jokes that go on between the two of us about just how opposite we are, and we'll spare you those details.
But we did have the same idea for this project, and I think a point that we try and make throughout, and also and we tell people all the time is that like. It's such a great illustration of how any partnership would work, especially your romantic partnership, is that you can have different whys for wanting to do something and come together and do that thing, do that goal. And also like, it's better because you're coming at it from two different motivations because you're truly
I mean, all
two different perspectives for it.
All organizations, I mean, I'll always contextualize this for the audience, or portfolios, they seem to work better when you start mixing and matching assets with different characteristics there. That's for all the financiers listening, that's one way to put it. But it's also true in real life, right? When you have too much of the same thing, you actually create a bigger deficit in the stuff that you don't have. So really good theme.
Great. I like the book. I'm in a relationship. We're not married, but, we've been together for a few years now, I guess a little over 5 years. And, there came that time where it's like, should we get a bank account together? I'm like, whoa, okay. How about just a credit card? But reading your book, it dawned on me, or I guess I realized, or you helped me realize, like, okay, there's probably a reason why I reacted the way I did, and what she's thinking, and the money story, if you will, and you guys talked about that as kind of leading into reason or inspiration for writing the book. Can you tell me about this idea that everybody has a money story?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a whole first section of the book, which is concentrated on your beginnings and really understanding, your attitudes, feelings, values around money that are all shaped long before you met your partner. And I think what makes it challenging is you meet your partner and they too have lived a lot of life on their own and have their own attitudes and scripts towards money. So before we can even start to unpack what the commingling of these things look like, we have to really look inside ourselves to see why we feel the way that we do about money.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's what's cool about it, but it's also what's so hard about it is that there's some self-work and self-awareness that is involved when you do sit down to really do this in a meaningful way with someone else. You got to really understand a little bit like, hey, these few things are really important to me, or hey, I always behave this way around my finances.
Yeah.
Why that is. And then when you do that, you start to identify which pieces of that are worth holding on to and which maybe either aren't that important or even more so aren't serving you. Like, are these circumstances still present today that made you feel that way? And I think we see that even with things like we write about early childhood trauma as one example. I think a lot of people carry the scars from that into their adult financial behaviors, maybe in ways they don't even realize. But those circumstances so often are so far removed from the person you are today. And yeah, that requires healing. It might require therapy. It might require any number of things for you to see it and to really believe it. But the circumstances so often are no longer present, but you are carrying on the behaviors that are like the end result of your fight or flight from whatever that is years ago.
I think a big part of it is it gives you permission and maybe courage to share those feelings with your partner. Ultimately, we have a whole book here about communication. Yeah. So if you can tap into it, if you can recognize it, you then can go to, I know when I have to talk about something, the very first person I am going to is sitting right here. So to give you the, perspective that you need to get it out into the open so you can begin, whether it's healing or the work you need to do, it's huge stuff to take those first steps.
What was your first inkling that there is this idea, this concept of a money story? Is it something that you happened upon? Is it just as you decided the broader topic is working together as a couple on money? Let's go talk to various people. Did it come through research and talking to various psychologists or at different parties?
There's the personal side of this, which is I realized in doing work, it's crazy because like there's the personal side and the professional side. I have a lot of money baggage that I carry from my childhood into adulthood.
I thought they were first bags of money, but it's just baggage. I got rug pulled.
I carried a lot of baggage into my adult life and to our relationship around money, and also just our relationship between one another. And I never intended to get into this work, but I kind of did through years of being with a financial advisor for, of 2 decades. And I think I realized a lot when we sat down to begin working on our first book together, which was born again from a lot of the decisions and firsthand experiences that we had, not just what we observed, but what we were literally experiencing. And in the years to follow, you start to really question, like, where did all of this come from? Like, I'm still carrying these heavy feelings around money that stem far, far back in time. Like, and how is this impacting the way that I approach and handle and feel about money today? So there's the personal curiosity that I think led very much to research, led us to, some of the best in class experts who we spoke to for this book, because I could tell you firsthand, like, I didn't need to research to know the way that my baggage with money impacted our relationship, but I wanted to understand more about what that was all about. And lo and behold, any number of amazing financial therapists and marriage counselors will tell you that money is one of the most sensitive and complex and recurring conflicts in every relationship. So that's kind of was very validating, but also just, became the point at which we knew we had something we needed to dig into.
Yeah. How did your views on money together change after you finished the book from when you started?
That's an awesome question. We have 2 very different answers. I don't know if you want to go first.
No, go first. It's fine.
I think a lot of what got us into this and the decision ultimately for Heather to leave, her legal job of 13 years as a corporate attorney. And I'm not going to rob you of the, story behind that. But for me, getting uncomfortable with the changes that we needed to make in our lives to put us in this position to be able to work together, which always was the goal, is something that, I have a greater appreciation for having done this project, because not only were we working on this book, but we were working on ourselves. And the whole reason the book exists is because of the decisions we made. So truly, truly a lot of work going into it. And for me personally, I did a ton of self-work during this time to be able to adapt to change. We're talking a decade, almost a decade of having started the firm. We're talking 20 years of being in the industry. It's 13 years of Heather holding down a corporate job, which allowed me to take the risks and be able to grow this business. So you can only imagine how comfortable I became as things succeeded and started to get really good. And I think that change is very uncomfortable.
People reach that moment where to one person things feel great because they're incredibly comfortable, and Doug felt great.
Yeah, Doug was providing a lot of that comfort.
Doug was enjoying my care and my comfort and my corporate safety net for a very long time, and I was unhappy and growing more unhappy, and not just at work, but in terms of the responsibilities and how we chose to divvy them up in our household and our lives and our family with our 2 daughters. And it felt like I was carrying so much of that it was hindering my ability to take any leaps or risks in my career. It was definitely hindering my growth, not only in a corporate setting, but really to even have the room to ask myself the questions, what do I want to do and who do I want to be? I know this isn't it, but I just don't have even the space or capacity to think about it because it's been the Doug Show for so long. And
good show.
And great show, but it was time to change the channel. And I think a lot of people find themselves there, and it doesn't come from a bad place. And that's like a point we just keep trying to bring home, that like so many of us, you can end up in a place you don't want to be by omission too. Yeah. Not just because somebody made a bad decision. You can end up there through good decisions, but you just failed to keep reevaluating. You failed to keep touching base and communicating about how you both feel. For me, the end result of that, where I found myself, was a place that not only did I lose myself professionally, personally, but I had tapped out of our finances and my understanding of our money, because it felt, honestly to me, and I know many women feel this way, like it was the only thing I wasn't responsible for. So I was happy to hand it off to him because I was like, good, at least this is the only thing I don't have to worry about. But that's not good.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
We don't want anyone opting out.
But but through the changes that we've made, not only through writing this book, but through that we've made that led us to writing this book, I had the space in my life, not only career-wise to engage in this work, but to re-engage as an active partner in our finances, which is really the goal that we hope for everyone.
Yeah. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, or the idea of contribution that you write about in your book as well. And this idea initially, when I think about this, when I first read the title of the book and thinking what it could be about, it's like, oh, maybe it'd be like tips and tricks on like, do you do 50-50 split, or how do you, come to that equation? But then you wrote a lot about the contribution and considering different aspects of what each party brings to the relationship.
I think that time is our greatest currency, and people realize that at different times in their life. And money and care are inextricably linked concepts. We just don't always realize it. So it was very important when we think about the reframes that not only couples, but that advisors, people in this industry, that we want companies and organizations to embody, is that you contribute to your family and your loved ones in more ways than earning money. And we have to value the time that you spend doing all the other stuff in order to find that fairness. Because frankly, in many instances, including our own, the thing that allowed Doug to go, I was once the breadwinner in our household.
True story.
The thing that allowed for Doug to go out, take the risks that he took, and get to a point where he was earning 3 times my salary was my care, was my contribution, was the safety net that I was providing to our family.
Yeah, that's why it's laughable when one person says like, oh, I make all the money, I should be able to do whatever I need to do outside of that. It's like,
we want everyone to feel like a provider, because everyone is a provider. And I don't just say that so that, the breadwinner, pays more respect and provides more time to their spouse who may be doing more caregiving. I say it so that the caregiver knows it too, so that they know that their time has value, so that they know they are also providers, and that they don't feel bad asking for what they need, and they don't tell themselves stories about whose time is worth more. I mean, I'll tell you, like, so much of the situation we found ourselves in, one of the experts in our book said that I was complicit in my own oppression. She's not wrong. Like when COVID hit and Doug was earning 3 times my salary, even though I was a corporate lawyer, doing my job every day, picking things up and putting them down, doing whatever I have to do. Like, it was very clear when we had 2 little kids at home who was going to be making the sacrifices. It was me. But those were messages that were embedded in me, not necessarily from him, but from the workplace, from society, from social media.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it, just real quick, I think it underscores a big theme in this book, which is that fairness is not equal. Because there's no way to equalize someone who's earning versus someone whose time is just as important providing care. And when you see people strive for 50-50, whether they're doing the same thing, both working or not working, that doesn't scale. That's not practical. It doesn't work that way. It's very subjective. What is fair to us is not fair to another couple, and vice versa. So, this idea of fairness is attached to everyone's time being equal, I think, is the way to think about that.
Right.
How tough was it to have that conversation between you two? I assume you had that conversation between you two in terms of enumerating the ways that you were contributing, Heather, and Doug. How tough was it to hear? Or maybe Doug, you're such a sweet guy. It's like, oh yeah, you make a lot of sense. And
well, I think the good news was, Heather came to me and, we sat down and she explained what was happening and the way that she felt. So I give us a lot of credit for just being capable of sitting down. Mm-hmm. I would be honest and tell you it's hard. It's uncomfortable. Not because of what she was saying to me, because I knew what would need to take place to get us to where we should be. It's like, yes. And we now need to enter, or I need to enter, a phase of great change in order to make that room that needs to be made.
And to be clear, it wasn't easy. It was hard. And it took several years of building resentment and passive aggressive communication rather than directly saying the thing that needed to be said, which is really like a main point to get across here, is that no, it's not easy. People think you're not communicating when you're like, oh, we don't talk about money. We've never spoken about that.
But that's the communication.
And maybe you haven't spoken directly about it, but you've communicated in one way or the other. Passive aggressive comments, through omission.
Silly little fights about not the issue.
Right. Things like you are communicating one way or the other. Like I was communicating that I was unhappy in different ways. I was huffing and puffing around the house. I was being spiteful. Like I remember leaving, I would test him. I'd leave something out and see if he would do anything with it. Like I'd leave a sock on the steps for 3 days and just see if he would pick it up. Huh. Things like that. But
I thought it belonged to the steps in my fence.
No, but you know what? I can't say there was just some day that I woke up and I was so, you know what? I think there's a world where we could have let it go on forever. There was an external factor that really brought this to a head, which was I was working for a company that gave me a very, very short time span to come back to the office 4 days a week. I think this is critical here, is that there was an external factor that really brought this from this is something stewing inside me to there's something that we have to do about this and make a decision. And I think that this isn't just one example of how many times there's things that go on for a really long time, but then life happens and maybe pushes one of you over the edge to say the thing that you've been trying to say for a really long time. And that was this situation that ultimately brought us to working together, where I said to him, I am not going back to New York City, mega commuting 4 days a week for this job when you're now in this position of this high earning position. One of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to take a step back and this is going to become more of a lifestyle practice for you and not keep growing and, pick up a lot of the responsibilities that I bear at home. And I'm going to go become some high flying GC somewhere, or I'm joining the firm. And we're going to do the stuff that we've always talked about doing, and it's going to be risky, and you're going to feel uncomfortable with it. One or the other. You're going to be uncomfortable either way. Which one's going to be?
How should couples start to approach that discussion, or start to value the non-monetary contributions in the relationship?
Yeah, I think the goal is not to get to any breaking point. In a perfect world, you would establish a practice that allows you to evaluate yourselves and catch yourselves in moments where things are building. Yes.
This is why in our concept of a money date, of a quarterly conversation, which we think should happen quarterly, that's our suggestion. We feel like any more frequently than that might be one, it's an opportunity to keep canceling.
Yeah. And you don't see any meaningful change when it's too short a period of a time. You want there to be enough life to actually occur to evaluate what's taken place over that quarter.
But this is why our version of a money conversation that we outlay in this book through the questions at the end of each section incorporates a discussion of time. In this, it's the perfect time to talk about time, is when you're sitting down to discuss money, because it's not just, okay, how did our expenses look this last quarter? Or are we saving for the goal that we have? It's also, are we all getting what we want out of the time that we have? And if we're not, what can we do to shuffle the deck on that? Is that something where he's got to pick up a little bit more for this next quarter so I've got more time to dedicate to work?
Yeah.
Or do we need to outsource? Because it's the perfect time to evaluate how much money do we have to put towards either a babysitter, to put towards a house cleaner, to put towards, who knows, whatever it may be.
But make no mistake, the fundamentals and the actual moving parts, of your financial life need to be paired with that as well. I think they go hand in hand. And while you do need to have these things organized and discussed, let's talk just a minute about, how to set yourself up for success when you're trying to establish the practice of regularly communicating around money. So we talked about the frequency of this, but time and place matter. Right. I would avoid the family rush hour of 3 to 5 or right after someone gets off a call or when everyone's exhausted before they need to go to bed. We would do this to each other. I'd run up after a meeting at 4 o'clock. Kids are going nuts. And she would say, "Hey, Doug, we need to talk. It's 11:45. I'm like, comatose, half asleep. Like these are terrible moments. Set that time and place, doing things that you love to do, whether that's a walk, cocktails, dinner. These are the things that we love to do, sometimes tennis. That way you have something to look forward to. And then we talked about time, a time in which no one's bothering you. You really have one another here. As far as ways to begin these conversations, try not to dive into what's not working and, being critical of yourselves. Take a victory lap. Talk about the things that are working well, things that you've achieved that quarter. So you have yourself some runway and no one's running away, right? By the time you do get to the things you do have to criticize yourselves over, the things that aren't working and the changes you do need to make.
Isn't it kind of crazy? I've always had this thing about the compliment sandwich that anytime you need to, this is
No,
I think it's mine. All right, let's fight about it.
Favor of that, the compliment sandwich?
Huge fan of the compliment
That's why
sandwich.
I'm taking credit for it.
That if you just sandwich whatever the constructive criticism or the thing that's bad between two things that are good.
Honey, you look beautiful today. You're really, really annoying me with this. And did I tell you how nice your hair looks? Works every time. The compliment sandwich.
It softens it, doesn't it?
It's true in the context of these conversations as well. You put the things that you need to talk about that need to be improved upon, put them in the middle. Start on a high note.
Yeah.
End on a high note. I know we're going to get here in the next quarter.
And then, and lastly, for those foundational components, the spreadsheets, the tables, be mindful of how your partner likes to receive information. And by the way, don't start your conversations with this section of, your conversation either, but be mindful with how they like to learn. Not everyone, wants to jam out to Excel, right? Some people love it being drawn out.
Who doesn't like that?
It's right. Wouldn't want a pivot table. Might not be the way to go.
There's never been more tools available to present your financial life in more palatable and different ways. So I think just be open to figuring out the one that you both like.
And if someone's really adverse to diving into numbers or the facts and the figures, start with the goals that you both want for yourselves. That will get your attention. Everyone's all in on that. Hey, remember, that great family vacation we wanted to go on this spring break? Yeah. Hey, you want to talk about how to make that happen? Absolutely. Right. So, hey, that's your back door into, let's see what we need to do in terms of cutting back on expenses or maybe extra work we need to pick up to allow this. And you get right into, all right, how are you doing? How are you feeling to be able to do these things? And you have yourself and you make a practice out of this, right? And you do this regularly.
I think that's a great approach. Tie it to something that they are looking forward to or something fun or that they want to achieve, as opposed to we need to talk about finances. As opposed to sometimes you deal with somebody that doesn't want anything to do with finances or thinks it's overwhelming to have to learn about the markets and all of that stuff. But yeah, I think if you make it approachable in that sense, that could be very helpful.
It was very important to me that we both understand and empathize in this book with the ways that people disengage from their finances and that we give them a little bit of tough love and that we say, you may not want to do this. You owe yourself and your family and your loved one who's handling it all for you. You owe everyone the fact that you do know what's going on. This is a responsibility that you hold as an individual. It's not something you can delegate. You can delegate the tasks. You can delegate the bill pay. You can delegate the investing, the mechanics.
Responsibility.
You can't delegate the knowledge. That's something that you owe yourself. It was very, very important. Like, I think an overarching theme here, and this goes beyond money. This is about relationships too. Yours, mine, and ours. When we got together, we didn't just, enmesh to the point that we are one person. You are two individual people who are better together.
That is kind of a nice segue to the next question I've been thinking about, which is everything sounds like, well, communication is a very important part. Collaboration is needed. Is that the same for the money itself? Is it a joint account for everything and everybody sees it? Or do you still need separate accounts and separate spending accounts, or even
it depends.
An allowance?
It wouldn't be a conversation on love and money if we didn't get asked how to set up, your actual financial life here. And didn't mean to cut you off, but yes, it does depend. I think what ultimately is going to work for, works best for the couple is what they should do. Having said that, almost all the data, surveys, and, experience that I've seen and lived through as an advisor suggests that operating out of a joint account is the preferred way to go. It, allows for transparency, collaboration, teamwork, all of the things that you want to have when being a literal financial team here. So operationally, working out of that joint account, I think that's the way to go. I do like autonomy for folks to have their own individual account. It actually is a very practical component to your financial life. Check-in numbers are important. So just around spending and trust and the freedom to spend, there's a number out there that I think people should define as far as, when it's appropriate to check in versus going about your, daily life. Did you want to chime in on things like check-in numbers?
No, I think it's important that if you want to maintain that individuality and that freedom and independence, that you still maintain those personal accounts, and you guys can set rules around how much goes in those personal accounts every month. Or at the very least, if you do have a joint account, set a check-in number, which is what Doug just described. Like, we asked all these couples that we interview, do you feel free to spend? And I can't tell you how many partners were, in a situation where one person said yes and the other said no. Well, clearly there is a lack of discussion between the two of you around what's working, what's not, who feels they have the agency to be in control and make decisions around their finances and who doesn't. And that's not what you want. Yeah. So that's why we say, even if you are operating out of a joint account, which is preferred from a teamwork and practicality standpoint, have a check-in number.
I think it underscores, again, like a lot of the questions you'll find at the end of each section are those prompts. That's one of them, right? Just asking that number and discovering you have different answers opens the door to the conversation to figuring out why that is. And that's exactly what we want to happen here, right? We want to open these doors that get you talking in ways that you just haven't before. That is growth.
Yeah. It's really interesting. I mean, like, the people that you talked to that felt like they didn't have agency, was that purely monetary reason that you could tell? Maybe they made less than the other person, or maybe the person that made more actually kind of felt bad about spending more. And did you get a sense of that?
It was so many different reasons, and that's what's so complex about it. And almost aside from a couple, like, very few people did that feeling come from their spouse, like their spouse putting that on them. A lot of that was internal. And I'll speak from my own experience too, that when I decided to forego my 6-figure corporate salary to join the firm, I too felt less free to spend. I just did. Like, I didn't realize how much of my self-worth I had tethered to that income until it was gone. And so even though on paper I could still spend, and that it wasn't impacting our household finances at all, whether I went out and bought the pair of boots I wanted or not, but it was a guilt. Right. And so I think it really depends. I think it has to do with, you often see caregivers who aren't earning money feeling as though they are not entitled to spend. But again, that's another reason why we talk about, like, caregivers are providers. You are providing, so you are entitled, right, to spend as well. This is someone, an expert in the book who has written a book about downshifting and women downshifting out of the workforce, always says marriage is an interdependent organization. So you are just as entitled to the household finances. But a lot of people don't feel that way because of those messages.
Yeah. Are there certain risks that people don't talk about that you found surprising when researching and writing this book?
I'll share a complexity in our own lives that I think a lot of people are very inclined to think about things in black and white terms. Risk is a really hard one for people who don't have a background in something like finance or like insurance. In my case, like I understand risk. I think people think about even things like death. Okay. You might think about death. You might make plans for death, but do you make plans for incapacitation? Do you make plans to be unable to work for a short amount of time? Do you make plans to bridge, contingencies in your life that are not absolute, right? I think that is a great example of something that people have not accounted for. Like the business continuity plans of your life are things that people don't account for.
I'll flip it around. The risks you don't take. Right. So we talked about how we got to a point where we ultimately made the risk of foregoing a salary. We saw people become stagnant in their lives and not get to goals that they've set for themselves because they were unwilling to take the risk, or in some cases, the bet on themselves, or take the risk of having the conversation that they need to have for fear that it might jeopardize their relationship.
Well, we were an example of that too. I think you reached a point in the, in the risk dynamic of our two professions and our jobs where, you could say it was a huge risk for me to leave my corporate law job and, what financial risk on paper.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the other side of that coin was that we were leaving a lot of opportunities on the table.
Yeah.
Regarding Doug and his platform and our firm and our thought leadership. We were leaving opportunities on the table every day because nobody had the time or the bandwidth to pursue them because he was so busy doing what he was already doing that,
short-term versus long-term thinking.
Right.
Here, right.
What were we not able to do because I was spending my week sitting at the other.
Stay comfortable, don't grow as much, get uncomfortable, grow more, and that's lost on a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it is. I think everybody probably struggles with that. I know I do too. It's like, okay, that's gonna be really tough to do that, or whatever. But I think those are great points to make. And Heather, your point about planning for things like whether it's death or caregiving, and I guess my one little anecdote is dealing with aging parents now and seeing what they're going through and how, like, if I want to move them into a home, how expensive that is. I didn't count for that in my retirement planning, but I probably should for my own and what I'm going to have to spend on that too. So
those are incredibly important conversations to have, and it's never too soon to begin having them. Even if you're not in a financial position to solve for them right now, I think it's important to identify early on who might fall under your responsibility of care at some point in your life.
And communicate with the people who are also attached to that situation. We see this all the time in siblings that need to take care of one another. If it's aging parents, to your point, there's multiple children involved. The sooner you can have these conversations, especially when things are fine, right, is way better outcome than when, you need to react.
And that's the thing. People always say, like, we'll deal with it tomorrow, right? These circumstances, again, it's not about just death. It's about the time between. It's about the care. It's about the levels of care. It's about circles of care. Who will be involved when these things happen? I mean, you want it to be a process and a life. You want there to be seasons of your life, not reacting to whenever the next thing happens, because that's when you find yourself up against a wall or back on your heels versus saying, okay, we can at least, I'm not saying we've got to put it all down on paper today, but we can at least start to talk about, what do you think this looks like for you? What do you have in mind for your mom? What do you have in mind for your brother? Like what does this look like to you? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a really fair way to go about, your relationship when there could very well be a day that someone is going to,
need you.
There you go. Need you, require your time and your energy. And, you might love an in-law, a lot, but, for the one that's the blood, it's going to be a different set of feelings and circumstances here. So you better, get into some communication around that.
Yeah. In addition to that, and kind of considering where we are in the world today and the AI and technology and all of this different avenues and themes going on, are there new pressures on couples today that you didn't anticipate when you first started writing this book that they should consider or talk about?
I'll give one. I think that a lot of what we consume on the internet doesn't serve us. And I think that there are messages that we may not even realize we are digesting that are impacting the way that we choose to live and our lifestyle and our expectations. And we don't even realize it's happening. Like everything from the way you like to vacation and what you see about how you should vacation to things like agency and about what people should be doing with their time and who should be responsible for what. There's positive algos and there's way more negative algos, and there's a lot in between, and it's confusing. And I think that it bleeds into our real life and our relationships more than people realize. And so when it comes to like our generation, the next generation technology, like I just think it's important to sometimes maintain your perspective. Like go touch some grass, go hug your partner, because like we get really, really lost in the sauce online.
Yeah.
I would say it's just the acceleration of the general trend over the last 5 to 10 years, which is the attention economy and how much shorter our attention spans have become. So when you are consuming this, when you need to pay attention and focus on things that are important, you're not going to get it done in a 2-minute clip. You know, you're going to.
Well, right. And I think too, what you're trying to say too, is that I think everyone has synthesized. There's so many more, like we live in a society that loves to optimize.
Yeah.
We love to find the life hack, the best way to get to where you want to be as quickly and as seamlessly as possible.
These things don't have hacks to them.
Right. But I think that we are being tricked into believing by so many people, coaches, these 3 things or this one strategy will get you there. It's never just one thing.
I'll go on a little rant about this, but to that end, you know, I said these things aren't, you know, things that you could hack, whether it's your relationship with your partner, whether it's your own all things self-care, physical health, mental health, health of your relationship, and your financial health. They care about you, whether you care about them or not. And these are all long games. They all require practice. They all require discipline and consistency. And that is why there is no shortcuts when it comes to this stuff. You have to do them over and over again. And that's why that's why it's hard. That is singularly why it is so difficult, because people don't stick with it to get the growth that they're looking for. They rather outsource it or get it now. And yeah, that's only gotten to answer your question, that I think has only accelerated. And I think it will only continue to accelerate as we move forward into a more technologically infused AI type culture.
Well said. I think those are great answers. As we start to kind of close out the discussion on the book, you have a bunch of prompts for how people should get started. I think those are great. But is there one line in the book that you think people should just underline?
Probably have different ones.
I think I know what yours is.
No, I would just say probably what we've already said, which was this is a practice. There is no one-time solution. Yeah. If you're lucky, you get to play this game for a very, very long time with the person that you love. And so just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to keep coming back at it and keep improving and keep being curious about the person you love. That's the theme that threads throughout the book that I want people to walk away with it from.
Excellent.
I'll let her take that
Ditto?
one.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. So as we start to close out the podcast, I like to do 2 different things. One is ask you guys about a long-term trend. Doug knows this story. And then we'll play a little rapid fire game called Trend or Fad. It's supposed to be fun. We'll see where it goes. The long-term trend. So what's one long-term trend you see playing out over the next several years? It could be about exactly what we're talking about, or it's an opportunity to see if you have other thoughts on anything, whether it's mining, space rocks, or something that really excites you.
I'll go very financial planner here. I see a more financially literate society taking shape. Again, there's plenty of bad content out there, but there's a lot of great financial content that, whether it's for financial advisors or retail investors or just the general public, there's never been a better time to inform yourself around how you can take control of your financial life. And that will continue to happen, arguably not fast enough, but it's happening. So I'm glad to see that.
I would say long-term trends, you're seeing more dads taking a really active role in raising and caregiving their children, and that the gender bifurcation in the household is becoming less and less. You can see it at pickup at our kids' school.
Yeah.
And I love it. And I want to encourage it as much as we can.
Good stuff.
Well, that's a great segue to trend or fad, because that was one of my trend or fad questions, which was stay-at-home dads.
Trend.
Trend.
All right. Stock-based compensation, trend or fad?
Trend.
Trend. You just wrote about this.
Just wrote about it.
Last
year, 84% of it was a Morgan Stanley survey. 84% of those surveyed said they would be happy or glad to have some sort of stock-based compensation. So very much in demand from employees. Spouse
allowances, trend or fad?
Ugh.
Oh, fad. But a fad that should be
burn it to the ground. Yeah.
Allowances are for your children, not your spouse.
I loved your response on that. Subscriptions, trend or fad?
Ooh.
Oh.
Seems like they're everywhere.
Oh, everything's a subscription now.
It's got to keep trending for a while here.
Trend, because I just think that even like media has been democratized so much, and you should be able to, you should financially support the things you like to read. And so even just looking at that from like,
I think it normalizes though, as people realize they've signed up for like 1 million subscriptions, and now there's even AI tools to like look at what subscriptions you have and cancel the ones you don't use. So
it's a little easier now to manage all these subscriptions. Like if I do it all through Apple or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trend though.
Trending.
How about debit cards for kids? Trend or fad?
Trending. I'm very interested in, very kid-proofed type of financial instruments where parents have control. They can load up the card, get them into the they're going to be dealing with a cashless economy, of course. What do you
trend? I do it. I would do it any day. I can't wait to get my almost 10-year-old a debit card.
Yeah, we don't even carry cash that much anymore. So I want an allowance. It'd be great to just load that on the card.
Yeah. Good training tool too, right? For kids?
Absolutely. So many cool things we can do as advisors and parents.
And then the last one, I didn't realize was a thing, but I do it. But the thing has a name, and it's called Girl Dinner, trend or fad. Do you know what that is?
Do you know that?
I know what a girl dinner is. You know what? I'm like so against the girl dinner because I love to cook, and I'm like, just make yourself a solid meal. Like you shouldn't eat a box of Triscuits for dinner.
Oh no. What is it?
A girl dinner is like you're literally eating like a cheese stick and like a grape for dinner.
That's not good.
I mean, mine's a little more robust. Maybe it's like some charcuterie, some cheese and crackers, and
no, it's a fad. You need food groups and you should eat the vegetables.
By on
it's
dinner.
Throw it all in an omelet. You know what I mean? Like at least cook the eggs.
Yeah. I love eggs.
Throw it in the eggs.
Exactly.
Why is there a gummy bear in this omelet?
Well, this is awesome. It was great to talk to you guys. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about the book and everything about it. What's the best way for people to follow you, learn more about you? You've got a few things going on.
Through the internet.
Yeah. On the line.
In the book, go to domoneytogether.com if you want to, and you should subscribe to our newsletter, read thejointaccount.com. That's an awesome spot to be. Bonafidewealth.com is the firm. I'm at Doug Boneparth. You are
at Average Joelle
on all
everywhere on social
platforms. Follow along. Come join the ride.
Fantastic. And thank you guys for coming on.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you for tuning in to another episode of Trends with Benefits.